All right, in the D&D 5e system for Foundry, there's a transform actor feature. Here's how it works. All we need to do is open up the sheet of the actor who is being transformed and have access to the actor that they're transforming into in the sidebar over here. So in this case, I'm going to do a wild shape. So I have a bunch of wild shape actors ready to go. I have the targets character sheet open. It doesn't really matter what page you're on. And you drag an actor and drop it onto the sheet. It pops a window. In here, these checkboxes you can tick off depending on the specific kind of effect you're going for. You might be doing some sort of weird custom transformation that requires certain ones of these to be on. If you go through and tick those off in whatever combo you like, then you'll want to hit the custom settings button to make that transformation happen the way you chose it. The other two buttons down here, Wild Shape and Polymorph, are basically just checking the correct boxes here for you based on the 5e rules for those two features. So you can ignore all of these checkboxes and just go straight to the Wild Shape button if that's what you're doing, or ignore them all and go straight to Polymorph. You only need to pay attention to these if you're doing a custom settings. The one checkbox you do want to manage yourself is the transform all linked tokens. This is the one that makes the actor's token on the map actually change to the token of the transformed creature. So you probably want to have that on. So in my case here, if I'm transforming to a direwolf, I'm going to hit the wild shape button. And now I've got Algar as a direwolf, and all of my stats are appropriate. In addition, I've got all of the features from the direwolf sheet. So that wolf had a bite attack and these two features. So on my character sheet, I now have all of those things as well. And once you're ready to transform back, at the top of the actor's sheet, there is now a restore transformation link. And if you hit that, the character is now back to normal. So again, if I do the same thing, but this time hit polymorph, it does the transformation as before, but now all of my stats have changed as appropriate for a polymorph instead of a wild shape. One more thing worth noting is that the restore transformation does not work for tokens that are not linked back to their actor. So by default in the 5e system, all NPC type tokens do not have the link actor data checkbox enabled, which means that they don't share a hit point pool and other stats, but it also means that they don't have an actor that the transformation feature can use to restore them properly. So if you do transform an NPC without link actor data checked, what you end up with is, let's just get this giant lizard on here. What you end up with is a sheet that is transformed but cannot be transformed back. There's no link for it. Typically with most NPC transformations, you can simply drag out a new copy of the token to have that as the restored form. But if you do have stats or other things happening on that token and you really want the original back after the transformation, and it doesn't happen to be one that's linked, one thing you can do is copy and paste it. If you hit Control-C or Command-C on the Mac and Control-V or Command-V and paste it off somewhere, possibly out of sight of the characters or out in the buffer zone of your scene, then when you do the transformation to something else, which effectively permanently transforms that particular token, when you go to transform it back, you can delete that one and just bring in the copy that you made earlier. Another important note is that if you're using active effects, any active effects that are present on the character before you transform will be transferred to the new form. Now, depending on what the transformation was and what your rules are, you may not want those. Like, for example, if this is coming from a piece of equipment that the druid is technically no longer wearing, then this effect shouldn't be active. So if you have a druid making transformations with active effects present on their equipment, you may need to come in here and toggle those off after the transformation so that they're not still in effect. And then, of course, after the transformation is restored, they can go back in and they should be back on. But if they're not, you can just toggle them back on. Now, I've been doing these transformations as a GM in this world, but your players can do them as well. All they need is a couple of options set and the correct permissions. So for permissions, all they need is observer or better on the actors that they're going to transform into so that they can see them in their actors sidebar and drag and drop them onto their sheet. If you have them inside folders and you want to bulk change their permissions, you can right-click the folder, configure permissions, and change them all at once that way. The settings that you need before this will work are in your configure settings. There's a couple you need to do. Under system settings, we need to make sure allow polymorphing is checked. And then in core settings, we're going to go to permission configuration and make sure that these, whatever user level your players are on, they need to have create new actors, and they also need to have create new tokens. So make sure that those two are on and that allow polymorphing is on. And then we should be able to log in as a player and test this out. So I'm logged in as my druid now, and I've got access to the wild shape actors on the right and my sheet open, and I should be able to just drag and drop as I did as the GM. It will pop the same window. I can tell it to wild shape, and indeed the transformation happens the same way. Now, there's a small problem with restoring at the moment. Because of the way permissions work, in the game settings, you're not able to allow players to ever delete actors. And a part of the transformation process is that when you restore, this temporary transformed actor needs to be deleted. And so if a player hits the restore transformation link here, what you end up with is an extra actor left in your actors sidebar. Everything else still works. The player does transform, but a GM will have to delete this manually to clean up the mess. Perhaps at the end of the session, you can get rid of all the ones that are left there. Or of course, you can just have the GM do the restores to make it cleaner. And that's it.